Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Voice of America, the official podcast of the People's National Party. I'm your host, Owen, and on today's episode, we are going to be discussing the Biden administration's Build Back Better agenda. We'll be comparing it to our own platform here at the PNP. We'll be figuring out what we agree with, what we disagree with, the policies we support and don't support, and hopefully giving you, the listeners, a better understanding of the current administration's economic platform and what they plan to do in the near future to help the American worker, the American family, and ultimately the nation as a whole. So the three main selling points that the Biden administration is trying to use to convince people to support the agenda is that the policies in this Build Back Better platform will create more jobs, cut taxes for middle and lower class families, and ultimately provide lower costs for things like housing, prescription drugs, and higher education. So if we look into this on the White House website, you can find this all on the internet. It says the Build Back Better agenda is an ambitious plan to create jobs, cut taxes, and lower costs for working families, all paid for by making the tax code fairer and making the wealthiest and large corporations pay their fair share. As far as the PNP's opinion on this, we agree with that. We support higher taxation for large corporations and wealthier individuals in the United States. We're always going to stand with the working class of America. If you look on our own website, the People's National Party, our party platform, you'll find our Share Our Wealth program agenda, our supporting of distributist economics, our push for healthcare and educational reform, among many other things. And many of that is in tune with what the Biden administration is preaching here and what they're trying to get passed in Congress so that it can ultimately help the working people of America. As for the individual policies, the biggest ones are definitely the lower childcare costs that Biden keeps talking about, and the Democrats in general, the lower prescription drug costs, and the lower higher education costs. Now, here at the PNP, we do not support the lower childcare costs, as it does disincentivize the nuclear family structure and the mother. It takes away the need of the mother from living and supporting these children, especially in their years of early development. And of course, here at the People's National Party, we are all for reinstating the gender roles of society, the traditional family values of Western civilization and Christian social teaching. And anything that goes against that, we are going to be staunchly in opposition of, which is why it is always important to deconstruct every single economic agenda, because economics plays a huge role in affecting the social values of the society. And if we don't look at the economic agendas of the right and the left and the middle and everything, then we won't be able to make accurate and educated opinions on the issues that matter to society. So, you could look at the broad scale of the Build Back Better agenda and be like, hey, yeah, lower taxes, helping the working families, taxing the rich. Okay, I support that. Great, I support the agenda. But you do have to look at the individual aspects of it to see, okay, what do I support? What do I not support? And obviously, if you were to be a conservative, establishment conservative, you wouldn't just, it's not smart to just look at the agenda and be like, oh, well, that's the Democrats' thing, so I'm clearly against it. Because I'm sure there's things in here that even conservatives, even mainstream free market conservatives, would support, like the lower taxes on the middle and lower class. Something that Biden tried to emphasize during the 2020 election, but for some reason the Republicans wanted to ignore it. I mean, he kept saying repeatedly that he would never raise income taxes on anyone earning below $450,000 a year. And he has no intentions of doing such a thing. And it's clearly shown in this agenda that you can pay for this stuff, but You don't need to raise the taxes of the working families. Moving on from the childcare, the next bullet point that they talk about is lower higher education costs. It writes the Build Back Better agenda would provide 2 years of free community college, boosting the earnings of low-wage high school graduates by nearly $6,000 per year. President Biden's plan will also increase the maximum Pell Grant award by almost $1,500 and invest billions in subsidized tuition for low and middle income students at historically black colleges and universities, tribal colleges and universities, and minority serving institutions. Now, of course, they're not going to focus on the fact that Donald Trump was actually the first one to invest federal funding into the HBCU schools and other institutions like that. You got to get some of that wokeness in there, obviously, just as the Democrats like to do it. But, you can have your own opinion on the free community college. I know that's a big selling point for a lot of folks. It very well could boost the economy by making sure more people get into higher paying jobs, but we could also be put in the situation where um, many jobs start requiring a 2-year degree. Many jobs that didn't need a 2-year degree before now require one, since practically everyone can get it. Something we saw in the past 7 decades or so, right? Back in the 1950s, you could be the filling station attendant and still be able to afford a house and support your family. And you didn't need anything past a high school education to pump some gas into someone's car or fix something on their car. And now we are put in the position in society where even the most basic jobs do need higher education past high school. So it's a trade-off, and it's up to the individual to decide what their stance on that would be. Moving on to lower prescription drug costs. It writes, Americans pay 2 to 3 times more for their prescription drugs than people in other wealthy countries, and nearly 1 in 4 Americans struggle to afford prescription drugs. President Biden's plan will lower prescription drug costs for Americans by letting Medicare negotiate drug prices, so consumers are no longer at the whim of pharmaceutical companies. Personally, for me, this is something I definitely do support, and here at the People's National Party, we are all for making healthcare more affordable, especially for the working families of this country who do deserve a quality healthcare system. We are, as Bernie Sanders says, whether you love him or hate him, we are the last first world country that doesn't provide some sort of free healthcare to its people on a widespread level. And specifically in regards to prescription drug costs, there's this great thing you can study in Detroit, Michigan, right, which is literally borders Canada practically. It costs about $100 for 1 vial of insulin. But if you cross the border into Canada, it costs about $12 per vial of insulin. And that certainly is a lifesaver for most people, because of the fact of the matter is that there are people in this country who are risking their lives, who have diabetes, who are risking their lives because they can't afford the insulin. So they're taking chances. And we should not live in a society, the moral, religious, Christian nation that we aspire to be. We should not be forcing our people to live in a society where they're taking the chances with their lives because they can't afford it. It's a sick society that we live in, a society that forces people to choose between paying that month's rent or focusing on their health. And that's a big reason why we here at the PNP, we are against capitalism, as it not only is degenerate and anti-Christian, but it also pushes for unhealthy market competition in many cases, and a society that is far, far from the religious nation that we know we must have. Moving on from the lower costs, we move into the tax cuts, which I think is a really big selling point to a lot of Americans, because no one likes to pay their taxes. Even progressives who support um, tax hikes for everyone in order to pay for big welfare programs in their agendas, you know, nobody likes to pay them, and that's the deal. So I feel like conservatives and liberals would be able to unite over this. Um, the biggest one that they point out here on the White House website is tax cuts for families with children, which is a huge, huge thing. It says 1/3 of all adults with children struggle to pay their usual expenses. The American Rescue Plan increased the child tax credit from $2,000 per child to $3,000 per child for children 6 and over, and $3,600 for children under 6. The Build Back Better agenda will extend the child tax credit expansion in the American Rescue Plan, providing nearly 40 million households. And this is a big one. This is a really big one, because if we want a society that encourages the nuclear family, and for mothers to stay home and care for lots of children, and for families to have lots of kids, we need an incentive structure to make that a reality. And although this may just be a start and there may be a long way to go, this is a huge step towards having the large Christian households that we used to have here in America, of 4, 5, 6 kids per house, sometimes more, and continuing to spread our values and our beliefs generation after generation, which is super important here at the People's National Party. And although the Biden administration isn't exactly implementing these tax cuts for those reasons, the reasons that we support, it's still a good thing to take advantage of the opportunity. And now I say that the Biden administration supports the child tax credit not for the same reasons that the PNP does, because he also has a tax credit for people without children. Basically, you're earning more tax credit for not having kids, and he says it's to benefit the roughly 17 million low-wage workers, including cashiers, cooks, delivery drivers, and food preparation workers, basically giving them an extra $1,500 back on their taxes for not having kids. I mean, technically it is helping the working class save more money, but here at the PNP, we obviously support the family structure, and you just have to be careful with that aspect of it, I personally would say. Because, I mean, technically, if that policy were to be interpreted differently, you could say that it was a tax credit for people to not have kids and to disincentivize people settling down and getting married and all that type of stuff. But then again, it does only affect those really low income earners who are earning poverty wages. So, and for the most part, those folks don't have kids, and hopefully will in the future, which is why, along with the economic aspects of this society, we also have to transform the social values, and make it so that people are excited about, getting married, settling down, and living a plentiful, happy Christian lifestyle. Now, as for moving on from the tax credits, as for creating jobs, it says under workforce training, the U.S. has chronologically underinvested in workforce development, and millions of jobs have been going unfilled in growing sectors such as construction and healthcare. Through the high-quality career and technical education pathways and registered apprenticeships, President Biden's Build Back Better agenda will invest in training programs that will prepare millions of American workers for high-quality jobs in growing sectors. This is something that I definitely, personally, as an individual, would support, and I know the party would definitely be a fan of it as well, because it's not like we're, giving people free college, which could really transform the economy, as the market would react to, more people having a certain minimum standard of education, and ultimately making it so that there would be a point in which you had to go to college in order to get a job flipping burgers at McDonald's. Obviously, that's not the reality right now, but it could be, depending on how you incentivize the economy. But as for workforce training, I mean, skilled labor, the apprenticeship programs, for blue collar workers, those are great opportunities to get individuals into high paying quality jobs without having to force everyone to go to college to get a basic $60,000 annual salary to support a family or something. Um, definitely something we support here, and I think most Americans support it. You can't really come across someone who is against technical training programs or investing in them, at least making it easier for people. I mean, just think about it. Think about all the kids who, fail in a lot of kids from inner city communities or impoverished areas around the U.S. that their schools never had the proper funding. They ended up failing in the school, and now they can't go to college in order to get a basic $50,000 to $60,000 job, or one that they could earn that much a year. And they're forced to, flip those burgers at McDonald's. Or you could invest for them to go to a technical school or to go into an apprenticeship of some sort and get the training needed to earn a good salary that supports a family and everything that goes along with that. I mean, I think that's a great aspect of the overall agenda. And the last real point that they make in this Build Back Better agenda is their investment that they want in teachers and public schools across America. Now, this is a pretty interesting issue because the Democratic Party is not worried about the CRT or LGBTQ propaganda that's being pushed in elementary, middle, and high schools across America, because that's in line with their social values, and they don't care about that kind of stuff. But here at the People's National Party, we do care about that stuff, and most Americans do. They care about the curriculum that their children are learning from, and they want to play an active role in their child's education, which is why personally I am more supportive of homeschooling. It's much more traditional. It continues to reinforce the gender roles of a mother staying home and caring and educating for the children. Public schools do generally, take away the need for the parents to play that active role like I was talking about, and it puts it basically in the hands of the government. And most people, just about everyone in America, would agree that the United States public education system is deeply flawed and it does need attention. So beyond just reinvesting in the quality of the schools or the addressing the teacher shortage like the Biden administration wants, here at the People's National Party, we would support completely transforming the curriculums that are being taught so that it fits the moral, religious society that all of us are striving for. Because that's really what it comes down to. Just as I said before, and I keep reinstating this fact because it's so important, economics and cultural issues are intertwined and they affect each other. What you do to one side, it will come out and affect the other side in some way or another. If we transform the society, starting in a child's education, if we enforce the religious values and beliefs that have made Western civilization great into the minds of these adolescents, they will grow up knowing that these values and these principles and beliefs have made this world what it is today, and they should value and respect that. So I would partially agree with the policy that the Biden administration wants when it comes to reinvesting in schools. But, I think really you have to go a step beyond that in order to actually make the reform that you want. And that will conclude our 4th episode here at The Voice of America. I've noticed that a lot of you guys, of our listeners, are coming from YouTube, so if you could make an effort to like and subscribe to the channel, that would be awesome, so you can stay up to date with all of our great content that we come out with, including the weekly podcast. If you have any topic ideas you want discussed in the podcast, always feel free to reach out to us through email or social media. If you have any questions about the party or the platform, you can always go to our website, which is linked in the Spotify bio of this podcast. And as always, I look forward to talking to you next week. God bless.